So let me ask you a quick question. Do you have a risk register on your project right now? Most project managers, they're going to say yes. But here's what I've seen working with and talking to tons of project managers as a PMP and PMI RMP instructor. Most risk registers are not being used. They're being completed, but they're not being used. And there is a difference there. A massive difference, really. And if your register looks like the list you built at the start of your project and it hasn't substantially changed throughout month 3, 4, 5, then I'm going to show you today why that register is a dead risk register and exactly how the top PMs out there build living risk registers instead. So stick with me for the next few minutes because I'm going to explain to you how to actually build and use a risk register the right way. And I have a free template link in the description that you can use and apply in your projects today. So let's jump into this. So here's what a dead risk register actually looks like. And I want you to be honest with yourself as I describe this. The risks were identified at the beginning of a project, probably during planning or the kickoff or sometime along there. They got entered into a spreadsheet, maybe a template someone downloaded from some random website, and each risk has a probability score, each risk has an impact score, and it even has a risk score column for the cumulative risk score. But here's what's missing overall. There's no clear owner. Or you do have an owner column, but you just have PM for everyone, which basically means nobody is because the PM is trying to run the project, not just manage every individual risk. You also have no trigger conditions, nothing that tells the team when to activate the actual response. You don't have a response plan or it's vague. You use something like mitigate through communication. Like, what does that even mean? In the status column, every row says open from week 1 through project closure. Now you might be thinking, all right, Russ, I've seen that happen. You might even be thinking, I'm that person. And that's okay, because now is the perfect time to do it the right way. And I'm going to show you how to start building a living risk register. Does 5 things that a dead register never does. First, every risk has an owner, and it's not the project manager. It's a named individual who actually has authority, impact, or the ability to address that risk when we hit our trigger. So when the trigger happens, they can pull out the response and activate it right away. Number 2, every risk has a trigger. For the owner to actually respond to the risk, you have to have a designated trigger. The trigger line, the early warning sign that tells the team and the risk owner that this is going to happen, which allows them to activate the response plan now, not later, not when they get the sign off by the sponsor. Now they can actually do the response when it's necessary, which is why we want an owner who has the authority to actually do that work. And 3, you have a response plan that is specific. It's not communicate with the stakeholders. It's actual steps that owner can address when that trigger happens. It's very simple. The risks need detailed information per risk, which leads to number 4. In order to keep them detailed, in order to keep them accurate, risks need to be reviewed on a cadence schedule, weekly status meetings, sprint reviews. Whatever your rhythm is, the register needs to be on the agenda. It's not a document that you open before the PMO audit. It's not something that you just look at once and hope it works out for you. You need to put that thing into your project schedule for detailed reviews at least weekly. You're looking at this. And number 5, when risks get closed, you actually close them. So when the window for a risk passes, you drop it off the list. You put it at the bottom. You do something. You put it in an archive tab because you want to document it. You want to document why it didn't happen or why it did happen or what you were looking at, because that's going to go in your lessons learned later on. But you don't want old, inactive, not going to happen risks on your risk register. All right. So now let's jump into what fields do you actually want in that risk register in order to make sure that you're covering all those 5 items we just discussed. According to the PMBOK 8th edition and the standard for risk management, and for what I've seen running risk workshops, there are 8 fields that determine whether your risk register is actually going to work. First one is a risk identification number. This is simple. Every risk gets a designator. This makes it traceable in conversations and in change logs. This allows you to know what I'm talking about when I mention risk 001 is the same thing that you see on your end, because we're not always working hand to hand right next to each other. So you want to make sure you have good IDs for each risk. Field 2 is a real detailed risk description. Write it as a cause and effect statement, a due to, whatever way you need to write it the right way. Due to cause, there is a risk that the event which could result in effect. It's a very simple process, and that format forces clarity overall. But with that, you want to make sure that you also address how your stakeholders are going to see it. When we write these statements, it's good for project managers, it's good for our PMO, it's good for the project team. But are you writing it so your executives can understand it? So a recommendation I always have, right next to your risk description, throw another column for just basic language on the risk. So that way your stakeholders know exactly what they're looking at. Field 3 is a risk category. Is it technical, resource, external, schedule? Categorization helps you spot patterns overall. If 6 of your top risks are all in the same category, that tells you something important about your project in that specific category. Field 4 is probability and impact scores. You know these, they're on the PMP, they're a pretty simple process. But here's what most PMs tend to miss. You score them identification, but then you never rescore them during monitoring. You definitely need to make sure that as conditions change, your scores change too. This is how you keep your prioritized list of risks accurate throughout your project. In Field 5, is you have a risk owner, named, individual, accountable, not just a role, a person who has the authority and the ability to impact that risk when it happens, which leads into Field 6, that trigger condition, the trigger line, right? The observable event that signals the risk is becoming real. It's about to become an issue. So the vendor misses a milestone. A key resource is out sick for 3 days. Test results are coming that are below threshold. You need to write this down, be explicit with it, and make sure that you understand when this trigger happens, you activate that detailed response plan, which goes into Field 7, response plan. Are you going to avoid or transfer the threat? Are you going to exploit or enhance the opportunity? And yes, your register needs to track both threats and opportunities. You need to understand what is your response plan overall. And then Field 8, what is the status? Is it open, in progress, monitor, closed? What are you doing with the risk? Keep it simple and make sure that every row doesn't say open for month 1 all the way through month 6. That's how you make sure that your register is working and it's accurate along the time frame. Now, right now you might be thinking, hey, I have all those fields. We just don't update them. That's the most common gap that I see. You got to keep these updated and you got to keep them going throughout the project, which is why we need to make sure that this is a part of our schedule. It is a revolving task that happens every week. To help you out, let me give you a quick 15-minute weekly register review on what you can do with by yourself or with your team to make sure that this is staying accurate and up to date. So you pull up your risk register. First thing you do, scan the top risks. Are your first 5 risks? Just spend the first 5 minutes looking at your top 5 risks. Has anything changed over the past week that changed these risks? Are they still your greatest concerns on the project? Next, check your trigger conditions. Walk down that trigger line. Has the trigger fired? Do you see anything coming up? Are you encroaching on any of those warning signs? If yes, that risk needs to move into either active response or you need to contact that risk owner and figure out what's going on. Step 3, review in progress responses. If you have any risks that triggered the risk response, make sure you have an update from the risk owner. What is being executed? What has happened? If the risk is even a risk anymore, is it an issue? Or can you take it off the list because your response took care of it? It's an accountability conversation. A quick email to each owner saying, hey, this is what we need to do. Have you got it done? Step 4, close any expired risks. If the risk window has passed, if something was only applicable to the planning time frame of your project, but you're now deep into execution, take it off. Make sure that next week you're not worrying about that. Take it off the list, archive it, use it for your lessons learned, but overall, stop worrying about it. And last but not least, add your new risks. If anything surfaced this week that wasn't on the register last week, throw it on there. Add the score, assign it an owner, make sure they know their responsibilities, and then keep going on. Overall, that's all you have to do a review. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. And if you build your team into this, it becomes even more effective. It might take a couple more minutes, but it becomes something that takes a dead risk register and makes it living and something that's actually useful to you and your project team. Remember, the risk register is not there to prove you notice risk. It is there to help you make better decisions before risks become issues. It's there to make sure that you are prepared for the uncertainty that sits around your project. And it all comes around the difference between understanding documentation and project risk management. So if you want to start building a living risk register for your next project, I have a risk register template you can easily download, and it's going to be a link in the description. Simple, just download it, use it, and start applying these principles in your projects today. And one more thing, if you're studying for your PMP, the risk register shows up across multiple exam domains. So you need to know how to build it and how to use it. And if you're thinking about the PMI RMP, the register is the center of nearly everything that you're going to talk about in the RMP exam. And I have videos here at the Bearded Risk PM on both of these. If you're interested in that RMP certification, check out this video series here where I jump into the exam content outline around the exam. Stay proactive over reactive. I'll see you in the next video. 44 Risk PM out.